All right, yeah. So, where I was at, um, yeah, it becomes isolating. It becomes real isolating, um, which is a natural thing. It's okay. Um, but yeah. So, anyways, I was real isolated. 2018, you know, during that time, bro, like I would probably on some real shit, like I don't even know if I've ever told anybody this, but on some real shit, bro, I probably I never cried more in my life than that year. 2018 to 2019 ever, bro, like ever. Like for not for no reason, but I say I would cry almost every day, bro. Like I would fall asleep and just cry. I would like wake up in the morning and just cry, bro. Like because I just didn't understand what was happening. Um, you know, I remember like walking down campus just on the verge of tears. It's like a fucking sunny day. It's like a sunny day, bro. And all I can think about is just like killing myself, bro. Like suicide. Like this is probably closer to like summer. So all right, let me okay. Summer 2018 was really rough because this is when I started doing a lot of sort of trauma work. Um from like childhood and everything like that. Like just really reevaluating my situation, like just understanding more of like what happened. I was like, damn, like I never really thought about that shit, how much it affected me, bro. But it does, you know? And so at this time I started watching Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson was just becoming a thing. It wasn't even a thing. Like at that time, 2018, I just started catching some of his lectures online. Um, and as as black men, as men in general, or just as a person, like coming from broken homes and stuff, it's difficult. And there's so much there to unpack that I would have to do a whole maybe video series on just about unpacking all that stuff because there's so much there that I'm sure that people could, potentially relate to. Um, as a black man, I came from a fatherless home, single mom, and repairing the relationship with my father was probably one of the biggest things that I ever did in my life. Um, and it's such an underrated thing that almost no one really seems to talk about. Um, and that was one of the catalysts that made things actually harder for me, not spiritually, but physically, because mending certain relationships also broke or made more or made other relationships worse. Um, and at the time I was at home, I was living with my mother, and not like I mean I did get kicked out of the house basically, um, just because I was trying to work through so much of my own stuff, trying to do what I felt was best for me, what I needed to just clear my head, things that I needed to lay out on the table, situations that I needed to set straight and get answers to. Because when you grow up in a certain family like that, bro, like you don't have the answers, you don't have the history, you don't have all the information. And when you start really looking for the information, getting the history, getting what the actual situation was, it provides a lot of clarity and also pain. Um, And so, just as men in general, we have a lot to navigate in this world that is only getting more complex and more difficult. Um, so there was just a lot going on that summer, and I sort of broke certain relationships, and I healed certain relationships. Um, but going forward, it made it very difficult for me. Um, because then, after that, so during that summer, I was working two jobs. I was doing rehab to fix my injury. I was commuting a bunch. Um, and just trying to figure out my own path. I was also running an organization, and I did this like documentary and everything. I've already talked about that a few times. Um, but I did this whole like film documentary in Haiti, and that was a really powerful experience for me. But that summer was the first time that you know to just keep it 100, like I tried to like just commit suicide, bro. It was just too much. It was just too much going on for me. Like I was just over it, I was just over it. But yeah, so and that's a very weird experience, because I'll just dive into that a little bit. At that point, when you're standing there about to make the decision of whether you should continue or not, it's a weird space to be in. It's a very, very strange space, mental state to be in. And something freeing about sort of looking at that darkness that lies ahead of you, like, this is it, bro. Like, if you don't figure something out now, you will be gone forever. You're not coming back to this. You get what I'm saying? Like, you're not coming back to this. The good or the bad. So it's just a weird experience. And I just remember, bro, like standing there just crying, like just I needed a sign. I needed a sign for something. Um, and I ended up calling a friend after, um, and he kind of just helped me out a lot in that moment. But in that moment, bro, you gotta find something that you are willing to sacrifice yourself for, if that makes sense, because you're already about to make the sacrifice. You get what I'm saying? Like if you're at that point where it's like end all be all, you are about to make the sacrifice of yourself. And you can sacrifice yourself in other ways that keeps you here. And that's what I sort of chose to do. I said, all right, well, if I'm going to sacrifice myself, why not just sacrifice myself towards something that I want? You get what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't matter if I don't get it or not. It literally doesn't matter if I achieve that goal or not, because I'm willing to put everything into this because I'm already there. Like, there's no lower that it could go, you know? Um, so that's honestly the harsh reality of the state that I was in, that motivated me to do everything else for the next 4 or 5 years, because I was in a position mentally that I was already making the sacrifice. Like, I didn't care what I endured. I could starve. I could fucking get my leg chopped off. I could fucking, you know what I'm saying? Like, I was already there. Like, I was already ready for that. Like, mentally, I was already in hell. So nothing else for me at that time could be worse. Um, And that's kind of what kickstarted. I was like, all right, well, fuck it, bro. Like, gotta make something happen. Um, and if I die, bro, fuck it. Like, at least I tried, you know, at least I tried to do my shit how I wanted to, how to do something authentic to what was real for what I wanted in life, you know? Um, and yeah, that's what kicked it off. And so when I got back to school, I was in therapy. Like, I was going to talk to this therapist every week, and she was really, really helpful. She was really nice to me. Um, just how I needed to like unload shit, like just like you really need that, bro. Like I feel like even just as a guy, sometimes like just the process. I feel like okay, I feel like this about mental health. I feel like mental health and physical health are very similar in the fact that you can go through like physical health, right? Like you get injured, let's say you like sprain your ankle, you have to do rehab to get that better to the point where it's functioning normally. You know what I'm saying? And mental health is very similar like that. Like if you go through a very, very traumatic experience, you need to process that. You need someone to help you. You don't just if you sprain your ankle, you don't just do rehab on your own. You go to a fucking center, you fucking do, you know, the rehab exercises, you do everything, and then eventually at some point you get back to normal. You get back to normal. Um, in my view of mental health is very much like that, in that if you go through something traumatic, if you go through an experience, you should have someone help you process that, walk you through it, do all the necessary, you know, mental work to get back to normal. It's not to say in today's mental health is very much one dimensional. Like if you have something that like you have it forever. And I just feel like that view is very flawed. I feel that there's a normal basis. There's a normal, I guess, mental function, where the baseline is good, and things happen in life that deviate you from that, that you can then, you know, with the correct steps, you can work your way back to it. And I'm telling you because I did it. um, I'm telling you that because I did it naturally and it worked. And it worked. And this is what this whole, you know, mini series is about because I did it, bro. I'm living proof. Like just where I was at mentally to where I got to naturally was insane. And that's why I just feel like I need to share it. Um, you know, so this is still 2018. And this is when I started looking for like things like purpose, like meaning like, okay, what exactly, okay, what the fuck do I want to do? You know, what the fuck do I want to do? I know this shit's fake anyways, like this shit doesn't matter anyways, but if I had to pick something, you know, Jordan, and that's where that Jordan Peterson video is like, just pick something. You just have to pick something. Um, and so for a while, I wanted to join the Marines, because in university you can join the Marines, go in as an officer. And I was looking for something like brotherhood or like community and purpose like that I could join and like just be active and everything like that. So I went into the Marine office. I tried to go, you know, get signed up and everything, but I got declined because of my tattoo on my wrist. So they were like on paper, you know, I was going through the process for a couple weeks. And the guy who was recruiting me, he's like, damn, he's like, everything on paper looks good. Like I was an athlete, I was Division 1, like, you know, good school. He was like, on paper, like you would 100% make it, but the tattoo is just beyond what we accept. You know, they it has to be like 2 inches above your wrist or something like that. It has to be um a certain size. Like they're just super anal about um presentation, visual presentation, which I understand, which I totally understand. Um, so that sort of put a damp in my plans. I was like, fuck. And so I had to figure something else out. And then I started looking at like drop shipping. I started looking at all this other shit, you know. And And that's when was gonna make a Shopify store around like designer goods, like French goods, like everything like that. Because I was at that point, I was still into art and everything. I had been making music. I had been doing some fashion stuff like with friends, and had worked on a couple film projects. And also at this time, I was really trying to learn more about myself. I think that was one of the biggest things that helped me the most. Um, People just don't know themselves at all, like, and when I really started digging, I found that no matter what measure or test that I was using, I would get very similar results, whether it's like fucking astrology, whether it's like your fucking zodiac sign, or like a personality test, or whatever else is out there to measure. Everything else was pointing me in a very similar direction. And so I feel like people have characters, people have characters of what they're naturally good at or drawn to. And you have to understand what that is for yourself. So doing those types of things, go get your fucking birth chart read, bro. Go, what is your fucking star sign, moon sign, all this. Even if you don't fucking believe in it, bro, just get it looked at. Do a couple personality tests and see what it says. See what it says about you. See what type of interest, and then cross reference them, like, see, okay, my astrology sign, birth chart, whatever, said this about this type of person, and this personality test is also saying something similar about this type of person, and that this type of person would be good at something like this. So at when I did that, I felt like up to that point, I had been trying to force a lot of stuff in my life. I had been trying to force relationships. I had been trying to force situations. I had been trying to force like future paths. I had been trying to force interests based off of things that I didn't even actually want, but what other people around me wanted me for me, you know. And so that's when I made a decision to lean into what my natural thing was. Um, I was like, okay, I need to lean into that more. And I tried to start and flow more with that. And this is when I would say was the beginning of my faith, I guess, in God. Like, because prior up to that point, I wouldn't say that I was particularly religious or faithful. I wouldn't say that I was necessarily atheist, but I had questions, I just didn't necessarily believe. It was hard to kind of like do all that. But at this point, when I started really leaning into that, is when I feel like certain things started happening for me that I just could not explain to anyone, and it just made zero logical sense. Which I'll explain later. Um, and it felt like, so earlier when I was talking about that things just got harder, I felt like I just was getting tested more and more and more and more and more. Like, oh, like, you really say you want this shit? Like, okay, like, you really want to like go through this? All right, boom. Here's this. You're gonna fucking get hammered. Like, you're gonna get tested. And fall 2018 was just fucking tough. That shit was fucking tough. Let me see. All right, I'll say that next part.